And then we have the customers. So of course the customers is where we would go if people had questions about something, they're returning merchandise, and or we're tracking the accounts receivable, or possibly we're looking for those estimates. So we have, once again, the automatic filter bar. So estimates, notice we don't have any open estimates at this time, as all the estimates we looked at before were closed. We've got the unbilled income. So this would be things like time that we charged, that if we're in a job cost system, but we haven't billed it out yet. We'll talk more about that mainly in the second half of the course when we do our practice problem. Or we have billable items, such as we paid for gas or supplies that we want to then pull over into an invoice so that we can bill the client as part of their project on that, but we haven't done it yet. And then we've got the overdue invoices. So these are the customers that have the overdue invoices, as opposed to on the invoices side when we looked at all of the overdue invoices themselves. And then we have the send a reminder and receive payment. And so we could send these reminders, and this is another area that we might touch on later. I think we have another course or section on just how you might send the reminders, because notice that some of these this one has 2 overdue invoices. So do you want to send them as they have late payments on the invoices? Do you want to send them 2 invoices again? Or most likely we're going to want to send a reminder periodically telling everybody, if they're all overdue invoices, here's a summary of how much you owe us, for example. And so we could set that up. And then we have the open, so 20 open invoices and credits, and then the recently paid ones. Okay, and so then if we go down here and if we go into, let's go into overdue invoices. If we go into a particular client, then now we can see the actual client, and we have our activity down here. So if they had a question, we can go down here and figure out what has happened. Notice it's beautifully laid out, and notice the only thing you're going to see here are invoices and payments if you have an invoice system. Otherwise, we would have the sales receipts, which would be the form used when you have at a cash register. Notice that deposits aren't typically something that's going to be in here. So if you sell stuff and you just record it with a deposit, again, you're not going to have all the detail as nicely laid out as if you use the form designed for sales, invoices, and sales receipts. However, that might be the easiest thing to do in some cases, like in gig work, and the trade-off would be worthwhile possibly. So notice we have a payment that's been closed out. You can see the invoice has been paid, and so on and so forth. And you can go in here and look for basically the open item. Here's basically the open item. So if we had a question, we're going to say, hey, here's the one that's open. You owe us this money, and so on and so forth. We'll talk more about that as we go through each of the forms. So then we have the transaction list as well. We've got the statements. We've got the recurring transactions, the customer detail, and the late fees. We're mostly going to be over here in this area. Note that when we set up a new customer, you can set up a new customer from here, but oftentimes you might be setting up a new customer as you record the sales form, whether that be an invoice or a sales receipt, right? So we're going to, as we make the invoice and bill the client, if it's a new customer, we're probably going to set up the invoice, set up the customer when we create the invoice possibly, which will then populate it over here. Also note, when I go back, I'm not going to use the arrow up here. I'm going to try to use the arrows that are designed within the website if we have them, which normally we do within QuickBooks. So this arrow takes me back to the customers here. All right, so we have a customer type, new customer up top. So we could make a new customer here if we wanted to make the new customer without having to do the to enter an invoice at the time we do it. Sorry for the stuttering there. Import customers and multiple customers.